Well, this is a brand new power steering pump for the Mustang. The one that's on there is not correct, actually period correct, because it's got the smaller tube that comes off the back. They make two flavors of this. This is the non-AC version where the tube is, this larger tube is up like this. If it's an AC car one, it comes up at an angle, but it's the larger tube. So the symptoms are it started sounding like it's got a supercharger. That's one problem. And the second problem is I'm losing power steering at idle now where I wasn't before. So obviously something's going inside the pump. I don't think it's a control valve or anything like that, just based on the noises it's making. That pump, I think whoever had the car before me, I think they did a Craigslist rebuild on it, and it's probably the pump that was in it. So anyways, this is a brand new Lares pump. I think they're the only ones that actually make new ones. So we're just going to go ahead and pop this in. Should be pretty quick and easy. It's only 2 lines. It's 3 bolts. I do run 3 bolts in the bracket. I think it keeps the pump flatter. Some people only run 2 because the upper one's the adjuster, the lower one's a pivot point. I do all 3 because there's also an adjuster slot down here. So we got to pull the old pump off. We got to pull the pulley off. We got to put the pulley on here. I do want to get this painted up, so I need to get this oil that, of course, is on it from them testing it cleaned up and give it a quick spray. So the first thing that we need to do is spill a quart of power steering fluid everywhere by taking the return line off. I just put a pan under there with these and I let it go wherever it's going to go. We'll wipe it up later. There really isn't a good solution. Then we pop the belt off. And then take the 3 bolts out. Take the high pressure line off actually first, and then the 3 bolts, and then then we can take the pulley off, and I have a special tool for that. There's other ways of trying to take those off. I think the tool is the best thing to do though. Yeah, it's not too bad, but it does get all over the sway bar mount and stuff. So we just let that drain out. I'm going to take that return line and dump it in there as well. I've decided I'm just going to leave this all natural. There's a very good reason for that, because I don't have time to paint it right now. So that's how it's going in. So it's out, and it was leaking down here too, so the seal on this is leaking. Probably from me wrenching on it too hard, trying to get tension on the belt. That's typical. This is an original Ford Motor Company one, though. I may rebuild this. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Maybe you guys would like to see me rebuild a power steering pump. I think about it, this could be the original pump. The reason I was saying I didn't think it was is because these smaller tubes I thought were later. But this is a smog car, and it had a smog pump up here, and that might be why it had this. Now, of course, that's all been removed, so it's not necessary anymore. But that could very well be why this is the way that it is. So, and a word for the wise, when you take these out, tip them up too, which is what I did, and I didn't get fluid everywhere. If you tip them backwards, you're just going to dump whatever was left in there out. So I made sure, and I lifted it, kind of tilting it up away from the lines. Now, when you go to work on these on your bench, make sure you steal your wife's cookie sheet to do that. That way, when the fluid goes everywhere, it just goes on the cookie sheet. You need one of these. You can rent them, I think. I own this one, but anyways, this is how you're supposed to remove these. So the way that this works, this collar right here, and this needs to back, you got to back this all the way out. But what happens is you put that there, you have this, right? And since that sleeve isn't on there, you can take and you can clamp this around this lip right here, okay? And then slide this over, and then that's what holds it. Then you can use this to remove it. So let me get it rigged up and I'll show you. Okay, so here it is installed. So see this, you just slide this over it. Now when it gets pressure on it, it's going to try and push out, and that collar, this sleeve will just hold that collar on there. So you don't need an impact or anything to do this. You could do it that way. I found I can do these with a couple of wrenches, a ratchet wrench and a regular open-end or box wrench, and it should come right off. Now, if it's real tight, and it might be this, if this is the original pump, that sucker's probably not going to want to come off there, but we'll try it. You might have to hit it with an impact. So I can already tell you this guy's giving me trouble, and it's part of it's because it's 45 degrees out here, and it's probably very tight, or it's just never been off before, or both, probably. I might have to put some heat into this sucker. I'm very carefully wrenching it forward. I don't want to break the... You can, if you pull these suckers hard enough, you can actually break these pulleys, and I don't have another one. I did order one from ACP, and it's wrong, even though it said it was right. So they don't make this anymore. Now, I know somebody that's got one if I need it, but it's kind of bent up in a couple of places, but it's still okay. So I don't know, I'm going to keep working it, but basically the way these work, and I'm just using the workbench to help me here. You just hold it with one and move it with the other, and hopefully eventually it starts to move. But you can get real involved with these. You might have to shoot some heat in there. We might have to put some penetrating oil in there. Not sure yet. Not the hardest one I've had to take off, but it was stubborn. Penetrating oil, I just put a little heat in the front, just a little bit, and then I was able to break it loose. So it slid off. I want to say this is original. If not, somebody put C5. It's a C5 code. Somebody put an original pump in it. So I'm betting this power steering pump's original. They do last quite a long time, so it's just time. And you can see the shaft seal was leaking a little bit. Certainly the bottom was leaking. So need to be done. So the tool kit that I have, obviously it comes with an installer, and what they give you with the pump will work if you're in a bind on the highway trying to change this. I'm trying to find it now. Anyways, they just give you a bolt and a washer, and that's fine, but this tool's got a bearing in it. It's got more surface area. It's definitely better to use the tool, but you can use a bolt and a nut, and don't use the bolt to pull it in. You'll break the bolt off in here. So you need to use a long bolt and a nut and a washer, and use the nut and the washer to pull it down. I'm telling you, if you put a bolt in there and just try and drive it in, you'll just snap the bolt off, and that'll be the end of that. I just cleaned the inside of this a little bit. I put a little bit of oil in there. Don't put anti-seize in there or anything. It doesn't need anything that thick, and you don't want it to spin, because remember, this is an interference fit. It needs to be tight on the shaft. I just want something to keep it from galling on the way in. So we'll put this on here. We'll put the installer on there and drive it home. It should be flush when it's all the way done. So now just real quick here, this is, and you'll have to deal with my shaky cam, but this is how this works. Obviously you hold it here, okay, and as you wrench this, and it should go pretty easy. If there's a burr or something and it gets real tight, don't force it, because you could be galling it, and then you'll never get it off, and you won't get it all the way on. So just keep an eye out for that. So you just keep going, like I said, until it's, until this bottoms out on the, that should bottom out on the shaft. Well, the vote came in from the boys. You know who you are. They said paint it black. So I am going to take the time and shoot some black on it. I'm going to try and not do the cast iron side. It kind of looks cool like that. So we'll just do the reservoir and the neck. Well, that only took about 132 days to dry, but it's dry. It's just been really cold here, so the paint didn't come out great. And I ended up having to paint this after all, just because there was no good way to mask it. Anyways, it's ready to go in, so it's pretty simple from here. You just bolt it up and adjust the belt, hook up the lines, and then we'll bleed it out. All right, it's all back together. Belt tensioned up. Now, usually when you take these off, you got to readjust it after you run it for a couple of minutes. Even a used belt seats a little bit. All sealed up there. We filled it up with fluid. There's no dipstick on this one. So I just filled it, just below the neck. Just if it foams, it'll overflow. So when you start it and turn the wheel to bleed it, you do it slowly. If you do it fast, if you do motions like that, it'll just foam the hell out of it, and it's going to go everywhere. I don't expect it to be too bad, just because I didn't drain the lines or anything. So it shouldn't be horrible. It's not like taking the cylinder off and draining all the lines and everything, get much air in there. So it should be okay. All right, she's running. Let's see if we got nothing so far. That's not good. Probably just air in the system. There it goes. Yeah, definitely air in the pump. So we're just going to have to slowly kind of work this. Okay, So it sucked all the fluid down. Now I'm just kind of slowly doing this with it. You see I got power assist now. It sucked down about a quart of fluid. So that pump was pretty dry despite the fact that it had quite a bit of fluid in it. You don't want to do this too fast. That's honestly, that's a little bit too fast how much I just moved it there. Should be like this. So we'll just do that a few times. If it foams up, shut it off, let it cool down. Let's take a look at it. See how it's foamed up in there a little bit? So we'll probably want to shut it down and let it kind of work that out a little bit. The bubbles will rise up to the top, they'll come out, cools down, then some of the level of the fluid goes back in a little bit. You know, the heat makes it expand out. All right, something to be aware of too, and I knew I kind of had overfilled it. The level will go up as it warms up. Now, after the first or second time you start it up with a new pump and it's got air in the system, it actually might overflow a little bit, and it did just a little bit. I mean, just all it required was a rag around it. Something else I forgot to mention. I run power steering fluid in these. Now, I know it says ATF only, that you're only supposed to run Ford Type F or whatever in it. I don't know. I'm a firm believer in power steering fluid because it's got anti-foaming agents in it and stuff that ATF doesn't have the same types in it. And I've been running ATF in this for a couple of years, and it hasn't destroyed anything. The pump is just from it being old. But the seals, normally the seals or something might get eaten if there's a problem with the fluid incompatibility. This power steering system does not leak on this thing. So anyways, this level will probably go down. If it's still too high, I might take some out with, like a turkey baster. But the air bubbles are still coming out of it, so I expect it to sink. So anyways, that pretty much puts a wrap on this one. Pretty easy job. Definitely that old pump was shot. So we'll wrap it up.